1989 in rural South Africa, a candle fell on the bed where a baby was sleeping. As the bed continued to collapse in a ball of raging fire around her, her belting cries fell on deaf walls.
I lived in a prison of depression. I'd never leave the house. I will still not get married. Who's going to want to marry someone like me? So it was things that I had to deal with.
When did you sit down with yourself and have that conversation to say stop?
I didn't. I lived in that for the longest.
How has it been for you on a very, very personal level?
Like when we talk about mental health, I know exactly what mental health is, where you're constantly fighting your own thoughts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we are again with another episode of Perspective with Itu, and I know you are confused, aren't you? You are used to seeing this, our queen, on the other side of this conversation. But today, I have the honor as Mona Monyane, actress, public figure, and CEO of the Power of Wellness, to sit down with our phenomenal melanin magic queen and delve into who she is, what she's about, and how she can inspire us today. Now, before I go too far, I just want to read you a little bit of her bio because my goodness, honey, marry well.
Yeah.
Marry well so your husband can write about you like this. Listen, in early 1989 in rural South Africa, a candle fell on the bed where a baby was sleeping. Itumeleng Sekhu-Pedi. And a then 11-month-old infant found herself in a life-altering moment. As the bed continued to collapse in a ball of raging fire around her, her belting cries fell on deaf walls. When her mother eventually spotted smoke and realized the danger her baby might be in, she rushed into the room to find a 70-degree fire hugging her little crying baby unkindly. Upon picking her up, her right hand remained behind on the bed. Itumeleng would spend the next 15 years in hospital and undergo 104 surgeries, as well as battling physical scars on her body, bullying, depression, and 3 suicide attempts. Now, I can only imagine as human beings on this planet who go through everything that we go through, so many of us would have stayed in that flame. But today, we have the privilege of sitting down with a queen who did not only rise from the flames, but continues to shine today. Before we even tap into this conversation, could you please do us a favor and light the way for us today?
Yes!
Oh my goodness. Itu, it is an honor to be able to sit here today and interview you.
Yeah.
I know that a while back, I was on the other side.
Yes.
And we had the most amazing conversation.
Yeah.
And I was just given the privilege to not only spread my message, own my voice, but also get to know you on a deeper level. And I think that's something that the audience today will really, really, really enjoy doing with me.
Yes.
How are you feeling? How's your heart? How's your mind?
I'm
How's your
good,
spirit?
honestly. I'm really, really good. I think when the team decided that I must be on the other side of the chair, I was like, yeah, no, it's fine, anything for my perspective viewers, just so that they can also get to know me better as well, so that when we do dig deep, into their favorite guests, that they also know me on a deeper level as well. You know what I mean? And it's not just like, who's this girl? You know what I mean? Like, interviewing these people to that level, that they will get to know me today, and who Itumeleng is. Yeah.
So now I can only imagine, right? Here you are, 11 months old. You're a baby. You're not even conscious of the world.
Yeah.
And your mom, as the bio says, your cries fell on deaf walls. How has it been for you on a very, very personal level? I'm asking you, I'm going in, I'm jumping in.
Yes, go in.
But how has it really been for you in your consciousness, understanding that you're different in this powerful way, to grow up with that reality?
Now or then?
Then.
Then it was terrible. It was terrible. I had a huge low self-esteem. Huge. It was very big. I cared a lot about what other people thought about me, how people looked at me, what they were saying, who was looking at me in a particular manner, who was whispering what, you know what I mean? You leave the house and you are immediately conscious about your surroundings. You know what I mean? Like you care so much about what the world says that it's sort of like you are living in the world, but you're out of the world. Because instead of being present, you are more present and caring so much about what the world thinks about you. And that is a terrible place to be in, because you look for something intentionally, you will find it. And I will find a lot of people looking at me. And immediately, because of how I felt about myself, I immediately think, okay, those people are thinking, oh my God, she's ugly. Oh my God, she's burnt. Oh my word, she's a ghost. Oh my God. It's because those were the thoughts that I had of myself, at the time. So of course, when a person would look at me, I would project my own feelings and my own thoughts, upon that person. So for the longest of time, for 19 years, I lived in a prison.
Sure.
I lived in a prison of depression. Like when we talk about mental health, I know exactly what mental health is, where you're constantly fighting your own thoughts, where people are telling you, think positive, and you're like, there's nothing positive here. You know what I mean? Where my mom is a very beautiful woman. She's very, very beautiful. She's just beautiful, man, And she would constantly tell me, but you're so beautiful, my daughter. And I'd be like, yay, you don't know what I'm going through. You know what I mean? Like, you do not know what I'm going through. You can't comprehend the scrutiny of being looked at and stared and like being different from the world. You know what I mean? But also your own thoughts can cripple you. And my thoughts crippled me a lot. I thought about who's going to date me. Like the people that are with me are with me for something. I thought about, so I chose to be by myself, and I would never leave the home. I'd never leave the house. I was at boarding school. And the only time when I'd go home was on Fridays. And then on Sundays, I would go back to school. And I'd never leave the house. I would never leave the house. Me and TV, we were best friends. Yes. Yes. I would have also done, but unfortunately.
I want to delve into that a little bit, because I can only imagine that there was a semblance of guilt that your mother might have felt. We being new moms or whatever, you're always so on edge. Am I doing the right thing? Is my baby safe? And how did it come about that you were left alone and that this was able to happen and that this flame grew to such an extent that it scarred so much of yourself without anybody noticing it was happening. What was the scenario? What was going on at that time?
So my mom had just breastfed me. And then I obviously fell asleep, from the boobies, because boobies are nice.
Boobies.
You know what I mean? And then I slept, right? So then she put me on the bed, but then she left the candle burning on the side of the pedestal. Like those long ones, like those like long ones. And then she went to go and eat and have a supper with her brothers, like in the lounge, which is like literally like right next door. You know what I mean? And then at some point, then the candle then fell on the bed, caught my dress, and then it caught me, and then that's how I got burnt. But nobody heard anything. Like my mom was with her two brothers, and they didn't hear anything. They only started smelling smoke and like something burning. Yes.
But by then, the damage had been done.
By that time now, it was already like 70 degrees Celsius fire. So by the time my mom then eventually found me in the bedroom, she was like, what? It's my own child, like burning. And then she picked me up from the fire. She went into the fire and she grabbed me from the fire, and then my right hand stayed behind. My brain scales were showing, my ear was completely burnt off, my mouth was completely, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Rushed to hospital, white glove on my left hand, like my fingers would drop, within that white glove until I was only left with one thumb. I stayed for 3 months in a coma. Stayed for another 3 years, and from 11 months when I got burnt to 15 years, I've had a total of 104 surgeries just to make me look like this. So it was really, really severe. It was really bad. Like home for me growing up was school, hospital, and maybe my real home. Maybe.
What do you mean by your real home?
Like my real home, like where like my mom and my siblings were. Like that. But if I wasn't at school,
you were in hospital.
Then I was in hospital. Then I would maybe go home like for like a day or two, and then Professor Schools would be like, come back. I've got an idea for your fingers. Come here, let me cut over there. You know what I mean?
So a lot of these surgeries were also, to a certain extent, just trial and error.
Experimental, yeah.
Trying to figure out
because
how
nothing
can we
like this had ever happened.
You.
Nothing like this to this extent had ever happened. I was a shock to the world even, because there were newspapers and journalists and articles just coming, rushing to like Mulmud Hospital because they were like, what happened?
And how did you survive?
Yes. You know what I mean? When? You know what I mean? I mean, my mom says that because when I got burnt, I was rushed to Jubilee Hospital, which is in Hammanskraal. And then from there, they took me to Ga-Rankuwa Hospital. When I got to Ga-Rankuwa Hospital, apparently there were like children, just like me, who were burnt from like hot water or like something, and they like died. Like something simple. Like something simple, like hot water like spilled, and the child is gone. So every single day, my mom would walk in, and there would be a child who's like gone. And she was like, how the hell is mine going to survive this? You know what I mean? Can't God had a plan?
Itu, when you're a woman of faith.
Yeah.
You are one of the most powerful prayer warriors I've come across in my whole entire life. Girl,
Nah.
you've saved me with them prayers a few times. No. But I just wonder, when we look at the Bible and we look at the people in the Bible who are spoken about, who have an impact, who we can refer to Job, Isaiah, do you believe that perhaps that candle was actually predestined?
I do. I do believe it, and I'll tell you why. There's a scripture for me that I read when I was like, you know what? Let me give God a chance, you know. And the scripture says that, for I knew you in your mother's womb before you were even born. And I was like, oh, so you knew. Oh, okay. So all this time, you knew me. And you were like, this child of mine, she must be born, right? And then it also says, for I'm the author and the finisher of your faith. So I was like, oh, so you knew that this was going to happen, you know. And I think that's when I started discovering the why, you know. And that is what makes me wake up each and every single day, because I'm like, oh, so you allowed it to happen. Not that he like caused it to happen. No, he allowed it to happen so that I can have such a purpose as this. Because remember, friend, that we will always go through stuff. You know what I mean? We will always go through trials. And that's why I always say as well to my guests that speak about what you've been through, because it is for a purpose. And I know that, because I know that this candle that burnt me, it was for a purpose. And therefore I know now, years later on, when I've shared my story with so many people, and people have read my books, and they've heard me speak, where people will come back and say, you have healed me. And I'm like, what? My story has healed you? So like, the trauma that I faced has healed you? And I think when we get to a point where we realize that God uses the pain and the test to get out a testimony, to say, I'm going to show my power through you. I'm going to show my strength through you. I'm going to show my light through you. I'm going to show my people and my children here on earth what I, as God, can do. Because I've got one hand and one finger, my friend. So everything that I can do is through Christ.
Amen.
You know what I mean? So therefore, when people see me, they see power. But that power is the power that lives within me. And that is our Lord Jesus Christ. And because of him, I'm able to bring hope and healing, because I've had to go through that. I've had to go through healing. I've had to go through physical healing, but I've also had to go through emotional. I had to get to a point where I started loving me to an extent where I can't even see them staring at me. So now I am present. Now when I walk out, you know what I mean? I am here.
I want to, because what you're saying is something, it's a journey that so many people struggle to get to. Like, this is a destination that so many people are actually actively seeking.
Yeah.
Where it's not physical scars that they are left with, but it's these emotional, mental, spiritual deficits within themselves. But I just want to know, so would you say that you were introduced to God at a very early age? Because I can only imagine the semblance of guilt your mother must have felt. And also, I mean, as a mother, if your child is going through pain that you cannot physically change, you seek other ways to cope. So you come across as a very powerfully spiritual human being. But is this because she actively really introduced you to this realm and this way of processing your pain, or did you find your way there?
I found my way. So my mom, my family actually, they were all Lutheran, you know. So I mean, like, she would force us to go to church. So that was the seed, right? And like, we would go to church, but I wouldn't hear anything. You know what I mean? Like, I was young, I was I was getting bored, you know. I was just like, oh. But also, I was also going through a lot of turmoil, because that was the time when I was still confused. I was still finding myself, not even, because I only really started finding myself after Christ. That was the time when I was still angry at God. I was like, why? You know what I mean? Why would you even allow this to happen? I was only 11 months old. What kind of a God are you? You know what I mean? So I was going through a lot of rage, you know, a lot of anger, a lot of confusion. But yes, my mom went through a lot of guilt. So to cut that long story short, what had happened was in 2007, while I was doing my matric year, my only friend that I had, you know, at the time in Soshanguve, her sister had DSTV, and you know it was like
DS
their thing.
Mugel.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it was that time where it was like only like a very few years, you know, like those ones, you know. So we were like, great, let's go to a sister's place so that we can watch, you know, some stuff. And then we took a local taxi from Block G, because Ngwanyana was Soshanguve,
Yes.
you know. And then we caught a taxi to there. She lived at Block AA at the time. So as soon as we get there, then the sister says, yeah, Lena, what do you guys want here? Nah, I have a visitor. And I was like, no, so how is that our problem? Like, we are here, you know what I mean? And then she's like, nope, Ibile, I'm going to drive you guys to my church. Because they had like a youth nyana, so like for the youth. And we're like, no, we're not going to church. You know what I mean? Like, what is wrong with this woman, you know? But also we grew up in a time where when an adult spoke,
we respected them. We respected our elders.
You know what I mean? So we got into the car anyway, like, oh, like murmuring, I know, you know what I mean? Like, what is this about now? You know? And then she drove us to her church. And we got to the church, and it was a youth bride. And I remember walking through the gate. And now that's where I crumble. Because remember, I'm still going through a lot of like
angry,
low self-esteem,
low self-esteem, self-aware.
So where there's like a crowd, it makes me crumble, because then I'm like, oh my God, now everybody's going to be staring at me and looking at me and I walked through the gate, and I remember feeling like that. And can I tell you, as soon as I like looked at everybody, there was a sense of love and care. But they were not looking at the burns. They were looking at me. And they were like, hello, Sissy. How are you doing? And they hugged me. And it was just like, are they not seeing what, like, the physical? You know what I mean? And the youth pastor came, and then he also like started talking to us, you know, like proper human beings.
So you literally say at 18 years old,
yeah,
that's when you came across people who were Christ-like.
Yeah.
This was not a religion.
No.
It wasn't a performance. They saw your spirit, they saw your soul.
Yeah.
And that validation is what has led you on the spiritual journey.
And then the pastor then said, let's have a talk, a private conversation. So it was me and my friend. It was my friend and I. Oh, my children would tell me, that's not English. So
the ones for school fees we pay.
Yes, we pay it.
We pay for your school fees.
You know, so my friend and I then got into the office, and the youth pastor started talking about, well, he really just wanted to know like where we were, you know, like spiritually. And I was like, what God? You know what I mean? Like, yes, we know that there's a God, but like, like, why would he allow this to happen? And then he said, do you know that every single thing that happens in life happens for a certain purpose?
Mm.
And I remember sitting there and I was like, yeah.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. And I think that gave me light, It gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me a sense of, okay, so let me find what my purpose is. And a week, 2 weeks later, I then came across a book at my uncle's place in Soweto, called The Purpose Driven Life Book by Rick Warren. And I took that book and I read that book. Oh my God. Oh my word.
And that's where it began.
Ooh, my word. That book changed my life.
Ladies and gentlemen, purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose, purpose, purpose. Everything happens for a reason. I just want to remind you, get your tissues, friend. Get your tissues. We are going Benekant. Here we are with this wonderful host of this beautiful podcast, Perspective with Sekhu-Pedi. I'm Mona Monyane, and we're just sitting down, delving into the mind of this amazing woman who has created a platform where so many of us can just come and share our voice and our stories. So at 18, that's when you went into the spiritual journey of self-discovery and realizing what your purpose is and who you want to be, essentially. After years of being very insecure, self-aware, you come into a community of people who embrace you and love you and see your light. And as you say, you read this book and it changed everything for you. Now, did you know that you wanted to be a person of impact? Or was it really just about living your life without the pain?
Honestly, growing up, I just wanted to live a normal, proper life. You know what I mean? So growing up, I always loved the media. Remember I told you that I was like glued to my screen because I couldn't face people. I couldn't face the world. I just didn't want to, and I chose not to. When I would go out, you must know that I was forced, or we were on our way to school. Because my mom, oh man, that woman, like, may the good Lord bless her soul. That woman invested every single thing she had for me to look like this. I mean, she took me to the best specialists, to the best doctors. I mean, my doctor was Johann Scholz, professor. He was a professor, Professor Johann Scholz. That man didn't just work on anybody. He chose. He was like, oh no. But my mom, she was like, Miche, let
This
me
my
tell
child.
you. Let me tell you. Wabana this one. And God chose him for me. That man is like a father to me, even till today.
So he was primarily the one who did all of your surgeries?
All of them.
All 104?
From 11 months. So actually what had happened was he chose me. So when I was at Ga-Rankuwa, he was also working at Mulmid Hospital. So he saw me at Ga-Rankuwa, and then he said to my mom, listen, this child is not going to be fine at this hospital. Please transfer her to Mulmid, and then we will work things out. I mean, this was in like 1989, going to like 1990. So for 3 years, my mom would knock on like companies' doors looking for like funding. So for me to look like this, it's because of a community. People came through in numbers. A company would say, how much is the surgery? 100 and something thousand rands? No problem. We will. So for 3 years, up until 1994 came, Professor Scholes was not being paid. He was like, I will do the surgeries for free as long as you just pay for the hospital. You know what I mean? Just pay for the hospital, the medication, da 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 da. So those companies would pay the hospital. And Professor Scholes was not being paid for all of those years. He was like, I'm going to do this for free. And he did it for free. It's only in 1994 when my mom could now qualify for a medical aid when things really started being better. But for 3-4 years, companies would run in numbers and they would pay. You know what I mean? My mom would knock on every single company's door. She would knock and she would be like, this is the situation. This is my daughter. This is how she looks like. She is at Mulmet Hospital right now and they want 160,000 rands. And that guy or that woman or whatever, they would say, don't worry, we will pay.
Sure.
So there are a lot of companies that supported me, and they supported a lot of my surgeries.
It's so powerful to listen to that because it feels like where one could have seen a candle destroying.
Yeah.
The true testimony is that it actually ignited a flame that was meant to shine. So I can imagine now here you are 18 years old.
Yes.
Gallons.
Yes.
Akiri.
Yes.
The boysons.
Yes.
Literally. Let's walk into that. Thank you so much for sharing that because it's so powerful to see. I think that's also what really impacted me in meeting you is understanding that so much we blame God, we blame the world, we were so angry, but we seldom see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that sometimes pain really does lead to purpose, or it is because of the purpose that the pain must happen. Without it, where's the purpose, right? But I can only imagine being a young woman wanting to get into the dating world, how challenging that might have been. Can you walk us through that?
Look, it wasn't challenging. But because of my own mental limitations, I made it a problem.
It wasn't challenging, Idu.
No, because honey, I'm telling you, in high school. No, I was being shelled, guys. Like, I was, you know what, my friend, let me tell you.
Hey.
Growing up, I was very loud. I was vibrant. I was, how you doing? So a lot of people that I grew up with, they don't know that I was going through so much. It's because when I would be in the public eye, I would act. You know what I mean? So people were drawn to that. They were drawn to
your light.
The light, like being like vibrant, you know what I mean? Like loud, da 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 da. So the boys, you know, they would, but also I was also one of the popular girls at school. So of course people wanted, you know, to like be with me. So in fact, in high school, I was in a serious relationship. I really was. I was with a guy, Shaman. Apparently he passed away. Well, yeah, he did. He passed away. I was with him for 3 years. I mean, that's a serious 3 years.
Jimmy, give me rage. 3 years.
3 years is a long time, honey. Okay. You know what I mean? And we were the couple. We were the it couple, you know. It's only my own mindset limitations that I was like, yeah, but I mean, will I find, like, will I still be married? Will I still do it? Because you can have everything that you want in life, but if your mindset is not renewed, you will still see things, you know, in a negative manner. So, for example, I could say to you, friend, you're so beautiful.
But if I don't believe it.
If you don't believe it, you won't see it.
I'm not going to receive.
Yes. You know what I mean? You won't see it. You won't even, like, when you walk, you'll still walk like this because, like, you're thinking, oh, no, like, can I just, like, hide myself away from the world? So it's only up until you start believing it that you will start walking like a beautiful girl, that you will start walking in your beauty. So for me, even though I was blessed around me, I was still going through that whole negative limitations of saying, Hore, I will still not get married. Who's going to want to marry someone like me? So it was things that I had to deal with. You know what I mean?
And before we answer the question,
Yeah.
right, of now, because you are married,
Yes.
you are a mother, so that was answered for you. But
Yeah.
before we delve into that, because now, as you walk me through your journey, I'm seeing how you're saying, as much as this candle really tried to destroy you, it actually unlocked your purpose. And you as well, in spite of your insecurities, were able to still be a light and shine and have this amazing personality that essentially created a community for you and connected you to people, right? But in that happening, where did you, or rather when, did you find yourself able to now sit down and have that conversation to say, I'm holding myself back? I'm holding myself back. My thoughts are limiting me. Here's my community. Here are these doctors that are working on me for free. Here are businesses that are rallying in. Here is, these boys that think I'm that gal. When did you sit down with yourself and have that conversation to say, stop?
I didn't. I didn't. I lived in that fakeness. I lived in that pretentiousness. I lived in that for the longest, up until I met Christ. It's only when I met Jesus Christ.
So,
and then he made me face
was that a
me.
different time from when you were 18 and you were taken to that braai?
Yeah. So all of those things that I had mentioned that eventually led to my matric, when I eventually met Jesus Christ, that was when I had to face me.
Do you mind bringing us into that moment?
Yeah. So that book, A Purpose-Driven Life book, I've never seen myself in a book like that, but also cried my eyes out. I even felt ashamed for blaming God for so many years, because I was like, oh my God, so all this time you had a purpose for me. All this time you knew why you had allowed it. But also, it's only when I started having a relationship with Christ, when I saw the hand of God from the beginning, for Professor Scholz to choose me in that hospital bed. Garangwa has a burned unit. It's huge. It's huge. It's big. But he chose me. And then he said, I want this child at moment. That was God, my friend.
Amen.
For a man to say, I want to start working on her, that was God. For Mulmud Hospital to take me in without a medical aid. This is in 1989. I'm 11 months old. To take me in as a black kid.
Yeah. And for context, I mean, it was still apartheid.
Yeah.
It was still apartheid.
Yes.
There was still limitations as to what we were allowed access to.
They took me in, but more than that, they took me in without money. You know, if they take you in and they know that you're like from like a rich family, they know, no, it's fine. You know what I mean? But with me, my mom had resigned from her work. So immediately when I got burned, she resigned. She was
to
a
take
teacher
care of you.
by profession. And she resigned to take care of me. So she's unemployed. She's unemployed. She's a black woman with this black child. And they took me in. So Moulmead at the time was run by a family called de Villiers. And they, when they took me in, it was that thing of, oh my God, let's take this child in. And they did. That was God.
So you say you felt guilt. Did you activate this guilt, or was it just in the moment when the realization came that, oh, I have a purpose. Oh, God has been gracious and he's been merciful and I haven't been seeing that, right? Did that guilt, was it just in the moment, or did you have to navigate your way through it?
It was in that moment. So it was just like a reflection moment. You know what I mean? It was just sort of like, oh my goodness. So all this time when I thought that where is this God? Where he was there from the
whole
beginning.
time.
Even the school that I went to. Like every single thing that happened in my life, my friend, it was a wow moment. You know what I mean? I was the first Black child at Hope School. This is a school in Westcliff in 1994, and they took me in. That was God. That type of a school, to that level. So every single thing in my life, like you can see the orchestration of God's hand from the beginning. And I think it's that realization for me in that moment while I was reading the book, where I was like, so I've always been taken care of.
Blessed and highly favored.
But also, it was also a moment of, you know how you hear things, you know, that, oh no, like you are dating this guy, but when this guy gets to his friends, like, oh no, like we are not really dating. And I was like, damn, here's a guy who chose me. You know what I mean? He died for me. He said, I choose you and I love you. And I want the world to know that I choose you and I love you with all my heart. And I was like, what type of a love is this? And I said, God, love me more.
Sure. God loved me more.
And I soaked in God's love for months. I remember a friend of mine called Kgotso, when we were at varsity, she walked in, you know, at some point, and I was reading my Bible, and she just said to me, I love how you're so childlike when it comes to your Christian walk with God, because I took everything as it is. You know what I mean? If the Bible says that for you are the head and you're not the tail, that very same day I will walk like I'm the head and I'm not the tail. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, but the Bible says I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So, friend, let's go and do it. And then she would be like, what do you mean? And I'd be like, but that's what it says. And now she was a Christian way longer than me. So she was like, you are reviving my own faith.
Sure.
Because you are taking things as they are. And I was like, yes, let's do that. You know what I mean? And every single thing that I started doing from that day on, I started doing it from my identity in Christ.
And this was just a decision that you made. It was not sort of you had to go to church every single day and go to prayer meetings and be part of a congregation. It was just you read this book, you met Christ in your spirit, and you decided, I will follow you blindly so, with the fullest faith.
But also from the day when I met the youth pastor, I started going to church every Sunday because I wanted to get to know more.
So community was still important.
I wanted to know more. I was very hungry for God, you know. I was excited, man. You know what I mean? I was like, ooh, tell me more.
Come you who are thirsty.
Yes, you know what I mean?
I will quench this with thirst. It's so powerful because, I mean, we are sitting in a society today where so many of us do separate ourselves from God because it's a blaming, it's an angry, it's a hurt. And we don't necessarily read the word and immediately say, okay, this is what is said and I'm going to believe it. So you are now this wonderful woman of faith, this wonderful woman of Christ. And when did you know that you were going to be in the spaces that you are now? Or did that kind of find you? Did your purpose sort of stumble upon you along the way? Or were you intentional about it?
My friend, remember I told you that I always watched TV.
Yes.
So I always wanted to become an actress, actually.
Ooh.
Yes, you know. So I sought for it. I mean, there was a point where I would be around the SABC all the time because, you know, I was just like looking, you know, and I was just like, oh my God, like what's happening here, you know? And I knocked at Generation's door. I took after my mom, Shemna. Like my mom knocks at everything. If my mom wants anything, she
won't
will
stop
knock.
me.
Yes, you know what I mean? She doesn't wait for like, no, no, she knocks. You know what I mean? So I knocked at the door, and then they were like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, I want to audition."
What?
And then they were like,
Who sent you?
"What do you mean?" I was like, "Yay, I'm here to audition." And then they said, no, please come back on Thursday. I said, okay, cool, no problem. I was in high school. I was in grade 10 at the time. Went back, my friend and I auditioned. And then like there was this guy, I won't mention his name. And he's the one that, you know, auditioned me. And then I even said, listen, since this was not expected, I have a story for you.
Yeah. Hi, Bo.
Yes.
What a ngola.
I was like, right there.
Bathroom.
So, Ketiwe is going to have a child, and her child is going to get burnt. And then when her child gets burnt,
and
then
grows up.
That's me. Yes,
Benekant.
I'm here within.
I love that.
And then a few weeks or months later, then the storyline of like Ketiwe changed. Then she got burnt.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so they took my story, these ones, and then they used it, and they didn't use me. Oh, but also after the audition, they called me. I mean, at least they had the audacity to call me back. And then they said to my mom, actually, because now I was not around. And then they said to my mom, listen, we'd like to take your daughter. She's very, very good at what she's doing. But it's going to be sensitive for sensitive viewers. Her scars are going to be sensitive for like sensitive viewers. I was like, what do you mean? Are you saying that I'm a ghost? Remember, now I'm already like dealing with that like whole
now you're reintroduced
low
to
self-esteem.
that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now like when they're saying it, I'm like, oh my goodness. And I went to so many agencies that told me the same thing. We'd like to take you, but we can't have you on because like your face is going to be sensitive for sensitive viewers. And I was like, what do you mean? Are you saying that I'm a ghost? And now remember that I've been feeling like this for all of these years already. So when they say this, I'm like, you see, exactly. So then when I made Christ, fast forward, made Christ. Now by that time, I've now already decided that, you know what, I'm just going the accounting route, because I was very good in accounting and mathematics. Forget about media, leave it behind, that. And then I meet Christ, remember now, in 2007. And then I take a gap year. And I take a gap year because, so I went to apply at UJ, at the Kingsway campus. And then they wanted to send me to the Soweto one. So I was like, nope, I'm not going to the Soweto one. I'd rather reapply then for next year. And then they said, no, it's fine. Next year, then like we will take you for accounting. So I'm like, okay, cool, perfect. So that gap year, then my dad calls my mom and says, no child of mine is just going to be sitting, you know. So then I went to Thabane and I did like a few like short courses for like 6 months or so, you know. But during that year was a very crucial time for me. And that's why everything happens for a purpose. You know what I mean? God didn't allow me to do accounting because he was like, no. That's not the route for you.
Yet.
I'm not done with you. You know what I mean? Remember that love for media? And he brought it back. And
how did that happen?
Because he said to me, your purpose is to bring hope and healing. And now at the time, would get a lot of people who would want to know what happened to
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean? So he then said to me that with media, you just need to say it once, and then a whole lot of people are going to hear your story. So now when you do media, you are speaking to like hundreds of thousands and millions of people. So instead of telling a person one by one, you are telling a multitude. And I was like, oh, okay.
But when you say,
Tell me
when you
more.
do media, so here you are, you're doing short courses with Damelini, and God is like, no, I'm intervening. I don't want you to go into behind the scenes.
Accounting,
You know,
yeah.
where now sensitive viewers
Yes.
are not exposed
Yeah,
to you,
yes.
right? How were you led into the media space?
So then that's what happened. So then when he said, I want you to bring hope and healing to my children, those were his words. He said, I want you to bring hope and healing to my children. And then I kept on getting visions of like media and TV and radio. So it brought me back again to my first love.
And you were knocking on doors again?
No. So then, because of my own insecurities now of what I've been told, I then went into the media space, but behind the scenes. So then that's when I went to UJ, and then I studied audiovisual communications, graduated from that. And in my second year, that's when I started working, in the media industry. Worked, my very, very first internship was at One Gospel.
Ah.
Yeah. It was at One Gospel at the old UBS. Worked there. Then from there, we went to Friends Like These. While I was doing Friends Like These, I was also doing your TV as well.
Behind the scenes?
Yes, behind it. I was always behind the scenes. I sort of like knew my place because like sensitive viewers, like that kept on like coming back, and then from there, then I moved to radio, and I became a content producer for Sibusiso on Metro FM, still behind the scenes. And now, even when Sibusiso would bring me on radio, those voices would always be there. And he would always want me to talk, because Sibusiso's like that. He'll always want his like producers and like a technical producer to sort of like shine, as well. And I would stutter. Because of what? Those voices that said, this is not for you, honey. You belong behind the scenes. And then the book then came along. And the book was also because of Sibusiso. He just mentioned it on radio and said, oh, my producer Itumeleng is releasing a book. I was like, no, I'm not releasing a book. I said, I'm releasing a book. You know what I mean? And then he was like, no, there's a book coming. I was like, no, there's no book. And then fast forward, then the book came. And the book put me back in front of the screen.
Tell them what your book is. Just very
So
quickly
my
for
book
us.
is titled What Do You See? Which was actually titled by one of my friends called Melo Mtetwa. I called her and I said, so she's the creative one. So then I said to her friend, I need a title of the book, but it needs to come from God, And I have a problem with when it's got something to do with me. I tend to sort of like be too emotional. I then don't hear God properly. Do you know what I mean? So I always want like other like people to sort of like pray about it.
Intercession.
Yes, you know what I mean? But when it's got to do with like somebody else, trust me, I will pray and I will hear from God.
To this day as well.
And then yeah. You know what I mean? But when it's got something to do with me and it's a decision that I have to make, I always like, yeah. So then Melo says to me, okay, fine, friend, I pray about it. And then I think 3 weeks later, and I was like pestering her, friend, what is God saying? No, not yet. And 3 weeks later, remember she sent me a message at 2 a.m. in the morning. And she said, the title of your book is called What Do You See? And immediately my spirit jumped.
Absolutely. Because we see beyond the scars I kept thinking to myself, where do I begin to unpack such a powerful story? But I'm grateful that God has led us to just be reminded that His purpose for our lives goes beyond our understanding. And you continue to be an exemplary example of what it is to own your purpose and to believe beyond your own limitations that you are here for a very particular reason. Your story is still writing itself, Queen.
Sure.
And we are so excited to be able to watch and learn and grow from you.
Sure.
But unfortunately, we do have to. I wish we could stay here all day long, guys. But I feel like you have given us what we needed to hear. That for anybody out there who just finds themselves doubting who they are and why they're here, there's something for you. Lean into that. Lean into the part of your spirit that says, maybe God had a plan for me indeed. So, Madam. Sensitive viewers, you were told that there are people who are too sensitive to see you. And when I look at you, what do I see? I see an unstoppable force.
Sure.
Power beyond measure. So, could you please hold this? Could you please just look at this yourself, my sister? Itu, looking at 18-year-old you, who really felt like, oh my gosh, I am nothing to be seen, nor heard, nor accepted. And knowing who she becomes, what would you tell her in this moment?
God loves you. You are beautiful. You are amazing. You're a child of God, which means that there's nothing that you cannot do. So let's keep on knocking on those doors and let's bring hope and healing to people. You were born for such a time as this. Daughter of the Most High. You were born with those scars to heal people with internal scars, to show them how much power and how much love God can still do in them and for them. So let's get into this world and let's keep on healing. Let's keep on giving people hope, because there is so much out there that we still need to tackle. And with God, we can. We can. We are unstoppable. That fire that tried to burn us, it lives within us. And it's saying, let's keep on. Let's keep on going. Let's do it. I love you. And you're beautiful. And you'll always be beautiful. Yeah.
Pow! Pow, 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 pow! What do I see? I see a phenomenal and powerful queen. Idu, I think that candle ignited your purpose. I think that it had to be that way. And you are a living example that God does not make mistakes, that He's very intentional. And I look forward to seeing you knock on every door.
Sure.
I look forward to seeing you heal so many more of us out there.
Sure.
Thank you so much for being a light in my life.
Sure.
Thank you for being a flame in my life.
Ooh. Oh, friend.
Burning away the insecurities, all of the nonsense. It's been an honor.
Thank you.
To get to sit down with you. And I hope we've piqued your interest, viewers, to understand that behind this woman is a whole library of books.
Sure.
And we can only continue to read and meet Christ in you.
Sure.
God bless you, Queen.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much, everybody, for having me today. It's been an honor. God has a purpose for you. Lean into it and truly believe that it will reveal itself to you
Yeah.
at the right time. I love you so much.
I love you, my friend. And thank you so much for doing this.
Come here.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
Guys, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Mwah. Bye.